Steph Weaves Tales presents Paxwood, The Trial of the Demon Slayer, a paranormal fantasy web serial written and narrated by Stephanie Gildart. Episode 17, Welcome to the Resistance. Viola gave us a quick primer as Jeremy went around with his medkit and checked wounds. The Resistance started out with 4. Viola and Oliver Steinway, Bowden Gibson, and Patrice Fiedler. When they looked at their names all together, Viola laughed and called them a string quartet, with a Steinway piano, a Gibson guitar, a viola, and a fiddle. The nickname stuck, and they fought together for the better part of a decade, doing what they could to combat the vampiric cancer that infected the region. We don't know how long Amity's been here. She's a shapeshifter vampire, able to take on many faces, and she controls minds. Wait, I interrupted. Shapeshifting vampires don't have psychic abilities. They're mutually exclusive gifts, except for prime vampires. And there are no prime vampires in the Americas. Primes can't operate in direct sunlight, and Amity can. Viola pushed back. Maybe you live long enough, you pick up new talents. Or she made a devil's deal, or a fey bargain. Or one of her talents comes naturally and the other is from an enchantment or a magical artifact. Haven't found anyone who can explain where her powers come from, but they're both innately part of her, everywhere she goes. Viola pressed on. When she and her brother were kids, some people would say her brother could read minds or predict the future. He understood her baby babble long before anyone else. They still had their sibling spats, like any kids, but a strong connection kept them together. Oliver's talent caught Amity's eye somehow. She collected gifted humans, bringing any potential threats under her sway, turning them into weapons in her service. She took the form of a new girl at school, Oliver's age, winning his heart with her beauty and charm. Viola was too young to be fooled by vampiric beauty, though. She couldn't stand to be in the same room as Amity. Wrongness oozed from her every pore. Viola didn't understand why no one else realized Amity was a monster. Oliver, frustrated but wanting to understand, opened himself to his little sister's perspective. When they shared thoughts, he saw the vampire through a child's eyes, and he couldn't unsee it. He challenged Amity directly. She sent her minions to take our parents, and they were supposed to take us too. But I have this way of being able to turn people's thoughts away from me when I want to avoid notice, Viola said. Oliver and I got away. We've tried to save our parents a few times. They're human thralls on Amity's plantation. She keeps them close. Bait, even after all these years. Plantation? I asked. Oh, yes, Viola nodded. With one of her faces, she runs the refurbished plantation as a wedding and event venue. Historical building status. Every human thrall on that plantation is on her payroll. Full-time salary and benefits. No missing people enslaved in the shadows. At least not there. Some of them want to be there, want the simple life in service of a vampire who's built her wealth on centuries of human suffering. Others, like my parents, are prisoners, even if they're employees on paper. Thought more than once about lighting the place on fire, Patrice chimed in. She had earthy brown skin and natural hair and a short afro. She sat down to introduce herself to the unfamiliar faces and join the conversation. Burning that many humans, many of them victims, though. I can't quite stomach it. Patrice crossed paths with Viola and Oliver on the run. Not long after, one of Amity's vampires killed her father in the line of duty. He was a police investigator following a missing person cold case. Patrice didn't understand what had happened and went looking for answers on her own. She made friends with Viola and Oliver, and together they slew her father's murderer and survived to tell the tale. Her mother, fortunately, believed in the supernatural. Jeremy ended up sitting with Bowden at some point. He was a silent young man, late teens, maybe early 20s, scrawny, with tawny brown skin and a clean-shaven head. He shuffled a flat gray river rock between his fingers, a perfect skipping stone, worn smooth by the water. We found Bowden when a bright light like a fire without smoke illuminated a summer night about a year after the 3 of us met, Viola explained. He can conjure sunlight, and he infuses it into stones for us to use as flashbangs when we need it. He used that sunlight to keep himself safe from the vampires that killed his family when they were camping. News called it a tragic bear attack. He ended up in foster care until Mama Fiedler adopted him. The string quartet and their resistance had been pushing back against Amity for almost a decade. Sometimes, with the help of other local hunters, they gained the upper hand. Always, Amity and her ilk festered and returned stronger. She started taking Fickle about a year ago, not long after she took up with a new lover, Thaddeus. Kept it subtle at first, like she always does. She acts as an angel investor and ingratiates herself with the community so they'll open their doors wide. She offers them a good life for nothing, an easier path forward than struggling to survive day to day. Happy, docile prey for the ever-hungry vampires. Viola looked around at the youth sheltering in the ramshackle church ruins. Vampires have to be careful around children, though. Prepubescent kids see through their innate charm and know them for the monsters they are, like I did. It's the unfortunate perpetual flaw in Amity's plan. If she doesn't have enough sway over the adults, anyone who actually cares about the kids will resist. Are all these kids orphans, or... Jeremy asked, doing a head count. Some of them are in foster care, but the foster homes are hit or miss for protection against vampires, Viola said. Others, their parents or guardians are technically alive, but enthralled. Thralls don't always remember to take care of themselves, let alone their kids. It's like any addiction. To be clear, we don't want child soldiers in the resistance. Mostly, we feed them and give them knowledge to protect their homes. We try to help families escape, cut off Amity's supplies, take out her allies, push back and protect against her. But some of them are still out there fighting, like the ones who saved us from those enthralled coyotes, Jeremy pointed out coolly. It's our home, one of the axe-wielding tweens declared, obstinate. Viola sighed. They're too young to understand the decisions they're making. All of us were too when we ended up in the fight. If we had a resource network and all the support in the universe to force them to safety, I'd send every one of them away, but we don't. We've got a friend in jail, tried and found guilty of kidnapping for trying to get kids away from their enthralled parents. The vampires use whatever law they can when it suits them. So we give the kids knowledge and skills we didn't have, increase their chances of survival while we keep trying to win this war however we can. Jeremy turned toward one of the axe wielders. So, how often do you sit in on planning meetings? Do you get assignments from the string quartet? We only plan with other kids from school, the kid answered. Mostly just to keep each other safe, like if one of us notices a thrall pack forming, we'll do something about it. Or if we know of vampires in the neighborhood feeding, we'll help everyone we can steer clear. Whatever we see, we tell the string quartet. They won't let us help on the bigger missions until we can get a driver's license. While Jeremy still had his brow furrowed, worried over this gathering of youth, I understood. I used to be part of the Hands of the Seers, I said. They have more resources than you to get kids out to safety or train kids up to help in the fight. But the appropriate recruitment age is a sensitive topic. I'm glad your resistance spotters found us. Hands of the Seers, Viola repeated. We don't see them much around here. They focus their efforts around the coasts and the big cities, isn't that right? I was just one demon slayer on one particular mission. But yeah, that sounds about right. There's the chosen guardian of the forest whose calling is to deal with invasive European entities that have infested the woods of North America. But she's headquartered somewhere in the Rockies, last I heard. Well, what brings you to a dark parking lot in Fickle in the middle of the night? Viola asked. I gave her the short version of my origin story, tit for tat. But my aunt, Gina Hayward, wasn't home when we arrived, and I haven't been able to find her anywhere. We'd just found her truck when those thralls came for us. Do you know Gina at all? Any of you? Oh, she's got the bunny farm, one kid said, doesn't she? I laughed. Angora rabbits, yes. Oh, the weird rabbit lady. She was going around town doing something weird the other day. Another kid chimed in. She had a rabbit on a leash, and she was walking it around like people walk dogs, only sometimes she'd just stop and stand in the same place and hold the rabbit for a while. It was weird, but not vampire weird, so I didn't think it mattered. The rabbit lady let my mom hold her rabbit for a while, and she started coming back to herself, a third kid said. I just thought it was because rabbits are so sweet, or maybe they're even luckier when they have all their feet and they're alive. Does your aunt have any special abilities? Viola asked. She's a mage, I confirmed. If she noticed something was wrong in town, she might have been trying to build up some protection magic or ward off evil. I don't think her rabbits were magic, just fluffy with fur that's worth its weight in gold. But some mages have animal familiars. I know one who has this mouse familiar with them almost all the time. If she's been trying to undermine Amity on her own, especially if she didn't have the big picture of what she's up against, she could be in grave danger, Viola said. I'll make some calls and see if anyone knows more. It's probably best if we go get some rest and do some more digging in daylight, now that I know this is a huge vampire infestation, I replied. Could you give us an escort back to the car? Although a few of the kids hopped up, Viola waved them down. Stay here, make sure anyone who comes in for food or medical attention gets what they need, and rest up yourselves. I've got this. The trip back to the parking lot was uneventful. Viola, Jeremy, and I shared some idle chatter and swapped cell phone numbers. I considered leaving Aunt Gina's truck where we found it, but ultimately fished the spare key out of the magnetic case in the driver's side rear wheel well and tossed it to Jeremy to drive. If the cops were under a vampire's thumb, and they took the car away, I could never search it for clues. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Paxwood Book 2, The Trial of the Demon Slayer, is written and narrated by Stephanie Gildart. That's me. Theme music composed by Human Nature. Visit paxwoodtales.com to read the story as it unfolds. Want to read over my shoulder while I write what's next? Catch me live on Twitch for laid-back virtual co-working and crafting. If you like the story and you want more, like, review, comment, subscribe, and if you're feeling particularly entangled, buy me a skein of yarn on Coffee. Carrie's paranormal tip of the day. The simple life in service to a monster quickly becomes a simple death. Notice how I said monster, not vampire? Let's define monster. Something that is self-serving, self-preserving, and unnecessarily cruel. Something that values others as less than self. Monsters come in all shapes, and no monster is worth your time.